Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the founder and CEO of Tom Savano Cocktails, Mr. James Kerslake. How are you today, James?
Really good, really good. Crazy busy, but that's how you want to be.
Listen, you're raising money, you're building a business, you're doing the things that people dream of, so it's good to be busy. But welcome to the show. Thank you for making the time to be here, of course. And I guess let's just jump straight into this and get an overview of what Tom Savano cocktails are. I guess they're kind of a bit self-explanatory, but you're going to obviously tell the story a lot better than me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, to be honest, it's not always completely self-explanatory, and I thought it would be when I released the brand. But it's a cocktail in a bottle. It makes sense to me. But people are like, well, what do I do with it? Well, how much is a measure? And you just drink it straight from the bottle like a beer. But yeah, I mean, this is like one of the bottles here. So this is the larger one. So it's literally just the idea is a bar quality cocktail in a bottle, so that you can replicate the same experience at home, on the go, anywhere. Which I suppose is really different than the traditional RTD ready to drink category.
Yeah,
Is that it was very much about convenience, grab and go, gin in a tin, that sort of
the
stuff. It's
gin in
good
a
for a
tin.
festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've indulged in my time. I'm not gonna be too pretentious about that, but it's got its place in time. But for this, I didn't really just want to do that. And I think a lot of people say, right, we're going to do an RTD, and they kind of come up with a cool idea, something sellable, marketable, gap in the market. But for me, it wasn't about a category. I never really thought about what category it was going into. It was
Mm.
about the fact that I wanted to have the same kind of cocktail that I'd get at like the Connaught Bar or Nightjar or one of these like top mixologist things, and I just wanted to have that whenever I wanted, like in a park, in a cinema, on a plane. So it was my quest to kind of see if that was possible. Really, it certainly didn't start off by thinking, right, here's a great idea, I'm going to make it work. It's like, well, I'm sure if it was a thing, someone would have done it by now. So
Yeah.
why hasn't someone done it?
So at what point did you start looking at the marketplace and think, well, no one has really done it in the way I want to do it. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to be that person to bring this to the market and push it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was fairly early on. I did sort of go in because I was very aware of all this stuff, and I like my cocktails. I like having a nice drink when I'm out and about. But there was just nothing available, and I knew that because I'd go out and I'd look for something, and it's like I'd go to the gin and tonic because it's a safe bet. You can't get it wrong. Whereas a canned porn star martini is going to be very hit and miss. The Marks and Spencer's mojitos were all right. I didn't mind them on a hot summer's day,
For
but that was
professional reasons, you've done a full scale of testing.
Yeah, exactly. It's market research.
Yeah, you
We'll
have
get
to.
on to more of that, but there's been a lot of research over the last year or two. In that respect, I call it research. But yeah,
Exactly.
basically there was no one doing the bar quality thing at that point. Obviously, it's become a huge thing since lockdown now. But back then, 2 and a bit years ago when I started it, there was no one doing it. But I didn't immediately rush and think, right, I'm going to do that. I suppose I had a couple of businesses before, and I've learned a little bit of caution and a little bit of humbleness, I suppose, over the years. And so my first thought was, can I do it? So I'm
Mm.
not going to rush in and say I'm going to fill that gap. So I've never made a product in my life. I've never launched a product. I don't know anything about the booze game. I'm not going to jump in and say, right, I'm going to smash this. It's like, well, let's see if I can actually make a product that I would be happy to sell first before we kind of start shouting about it. So I think that was the first 6 months, just developing some recipes and kind of giving myself the confidence that it was actually as good as I thought it was, and that it was going to be the product I wanted it to be.
At what point did that turn from can I to I can?
There was literally probably like a single moment. I mean, the big incentive to kind of push forward on, I suppose, was when I decided to launch. I said, right, I've been umming and ahhing about this for a while. I've got a lot of scrapbook sort of recipes and ideas, but it's still not a finished product. There's no label. I don't know which bottle I'm using. So I was like, right, how do I materialize this and actually get this over the line so it's a launched product? Surely there's not too much work. And I started, planning out the project. I was like, Jesus, that is a lot of work. It's like to take it from an idea to an actual finished at market product was an immense amount of work. So I gave myself the 1st of December last year, 2019, as kind of the epoch that I had to hit. And, I was pushing myself towards the state, forcing myself to get it ready to be over the line. And I mean, it was a real scrabble at the end to get everything ready. But it was about 2 weeks before launch. I mean, I was still like, I've got no idea how this is going to go. But part of me, I think it was a two-pronged thing. I wanted some awards, I think, to sort of show that this product's great, because people are used to a £2 gin and a tin. Why are they going to
Mm.
spend £12 on a bottle cocktail? If it's got some awards, they'll at least be guaranteed it's good. At the same time, I think there was a bigger part of me which kind of needed the validation in a way, I suppose. Just like, I think he's great, all my friends think they're great. Does a professional think they're great, or does he think they're, a little bit trash?
Does someone that you do not know, have no connection to, still think
who knows the industry and has got a good palate, so it's like, when there's nothing else, nothing, where it's completely objective, is this a good drink? And I think I kind of needed that for myself, because I didn't want to put it out there and have all these like rubbish reviews on Google saying this stuff tastes like ass, and that was like my biggest fear, I suppose. So I entered the Spirits Business Awards back in 2019, and there was about a 4-month delay to get the results. And I was at work, so I'd done all this around my day job, of course. So I was working at a bank at the time. I took a call during the day from the judges, and I wasn't expecting it. And they said, "Oh, by the way, we're from the Spirits Business Awards." I was like, "Oh shit, okay, here we go." And I was like, my heart was pounding. Think I've probably got nothing. It's not even launched. I haven't even launched the product yet. So of course I've got nothing. And they literally said that you've got 3 gold medals and 1 silver medal for like the 4 entries. And I was just blown away. And I think that was the time, that you're mentioning, when I finally thought I can do this. It's like, that was the boost I needed to think I'm not just deluding myself. This is actually good.
And you have to do it at that point. You can't not. You've created this amazing product. You've got that objective opinion there. If you then just went, oh, actually, I'm just going to shelve it, you would have been doing a huge disservice to yourself. I could imagine. I would love to be a fly on the wall at that moment when you receive that phone call, to see your face change and the excitement, and then probably hanging up and being like, right, where do I start? How do I crack on?
Yeah. Literally, I was like walking back to my desk in a bit of a daze, just literally like juggling. Well, now what? It's like, what do I do with these awards, and who do I tell? And just literally, like, my head wasn't in work at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure my manager came back and thought I prepared a text from a girl or something like that. The way I was grinning.
Did they know that you were trying to grow this business outside of work?
At the time, no. So it sort of started to come to light a little bit after that, like sort of around December, January time. Once I launched, it sort of came out, and I was a little bit hesitant because, not everyone's cool about the stuff. Not everyone's cool about having outside business interests, and they think it's going to distract. So I kind of tiptoed around it initially, but I very quickly realized that my manager was actually incredibly cool about it. He really loved the idea. They all wanted to try the cocktails, and he was really, really supportive. Like, he was like, completely go for it. Totally get you. You've got the stuff that you're passionate about. We love having you here. So, just whatever you need to make it work for you. Yeah. And that's been incredible to have that sort of support from a business and a company, like, a big bank, to have that kind of understanding was quite unexpected.
Again, one of those outside opinions that means so much when you don't realize it. Let's talk about the brand then, because Tom Savano, the name I just picture like the south of France, sitting on a beach having a cocktail. Why did you go down that naming route rather than James Kerslake Cocktails? Admittedly, it doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, let's face it. Let's be honest here, James.
Yeah. I wasn't blessed with like a great name out of the box, to be fair, for a brand. But I mean, I think literally on day one, when I decided to try this as a business idea, I was sitting out my garden, and just at the epoch moment where I was like, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this a go. I kind of went inside and I thought, okay, so how's it all going to work? You start brainstorming, and it's like, okay, the first thing I thought about is I don't want it to just be a product. There has to be a story behind it. There's got to be something that's a bit bigger than just a drink. What's special about these drinks? And I guess I'm a real romantic kind of guy. I'm very creative. I daydream all the time. I always think big. I can, I'll do up my garden with like fairy lights and sort of little arbors and wisteria everywhere, just to kind of make it just look incredible. It's been an obsession. So I love visuals and stories and escapism and things like that. So for me, it was always going to be about a story. And I don't know why, but just this idea came into my head of this guy who's sort of, I kind of picture him as almost like a 1950s character who sort of made his money. He's an entrepreneur, he's wealthy, but he didn't like mingling with all the other rich people. They weren't his kind of people. So instead, he spent his time and money traveling the world. He'd like discover these great, beautiful places around the world, meet all these like local distillers who'd been, creating these great craft spirits for like 3 generations that no one had ever heard of. And he'd kind of stay with them and drink mezcal into the early hours and all of this, this rich, successful guy, but also incredibly down to earth and a man of the people. But then once he'd kind of discovered the best, he'd bring them back and he'd throw these huge Gatsby-style parties where he'd introduce them to the world, and he'd be kind of in the shadows, sort of watching it all play out. Sort of in my mind, he kind of looked a bit like a tattooed Tom Hardy playing James Bond. And that was the little visual I always give you, which always appealed to people when I told them it's all right, we'll stick with that. And then from then it was just about coming up with a name for the guy. And I used a bit of melange of my favorite brands, I suppose. Started with Tom Ford. I love Tom Ford and the strong masculine kind of classic Art Deco style of brand. So that was the Tom. And then, from then it was just about thinking about a nice, more Italian name, something that was a little bit international to get that sort of slightly more exotic feel to it. And combining a few names, Tom Savini, who was a special effects artist who did Night of the Living Dead. He was one of my idols growing up. And the Delano Hotel in Miami. Combine those together, Tom Savano.
How important is that story aspect? Because a lot of brands attempt it, and a lot of brands do it really well. I think you're one of the brands that do it really well. I love the story. You look at the bottle, and that's without even knowing the story. That's the kind of feel you get from it. So for you, how important was that to portray and obviously set yourself apart from other cocktail brands?
I mean, I think when you first launch a product and you just want to get a few sales and you want to sell something at the door, it doesn't, I mean, obviously makes a difference. People see a beautiful bottle and they kind of buy into it. I think where it really makes a difference is in the later stages when you go from initial, okay, this is lockdown, we're a bar, we're just going to do cocktail delivery for 3 months. Fine, you might sell a few cocktails. Once you get beyond that, to take a brand to the next level where it actually becomes a brand rather than just a product, I think that's when it's absolutely essential. Like it's the most important thing. So I think I probably could have got close to this point without it. But I'd now be up against a ceiling where I couldn't take it beyond this. It's like, well, how do you build a brand beyond this? How do you get your audience? How do you kind of get people into your lifestyle and what this brand represents? And if people have got nothing to buy into, then it becomes a once or twice purchase and you forget about it. So and at the same time for me, it keeps me really passionate about it. Like if it was just a product, it becomes very much about numbers and about, bottom lines and margins and stuff like that. And as soon as you've got this great story behind it, it's exciting, it's fun. Every time you kind of work on a creative project, you've got something exciting to explore then. And I feel like we've only barely begun to tap, the potential of what we could do with the brand. Because largely it's been me, solo founder, doing everything. So two hands, 24 hours a day. There's only so much you can do.
You've been a busy boy.
Yeah.
You mentioned obviously 1st of December last year, 2nd of December last year you launched.
1st of December.
1st of December you launched. And then 2020 probably hasn't quite gone to the original plan that we had. You mentioned there about sort of bars and other people doing delivery cocktails and things. Do you think that has helped your brand in a long term because it's perhaps changing the shift of how people are even consuming alcohol and how people are consuming brands like yourselves in the first place? Yeah,
it's definitely there's ups and downs to it. There's definitely some good sides. Obviously, it's really promoting the at-home drinking market and sort of premium entertaining at home. People are sort of starting to realize how important that is, and it's very rapidly going to become part of the permanent landscape going forwards, even post-coronavirus. I think everything's going to be different. No one's going to rely purely on trade and bars and pubs anymore. There's always going to be this element to people's businesses now.
It kind of takes it back to the Tom Savano story of the Gatsby parties.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. It's about capture that magic moment, something, and be able to take it with you, and not be so locked into a particular venue to be able to experience that. But the extra competition has obviously made things difficult. There's a lot more competition out in terms of marketing spend. Like you're doing your Facebook ads, your Google ads. All of a sudden, there's 50 people doing it. So you're not just bidding against one or two people, and so things become a lot more expensive to kind of capture that audience. There's also a downside in this. I'm wary of saying this because it could be inflammatory to some people, I suppose. But I'm a Kiwi, we do that. But
be brave.
The vast majority of people out on the market, they do very average cocktails. If I'm honest, I mean, I've tried them all. Every time a new company comes out, I'll buy a bottle because I'm a perfectionist. I don't want to be second best. So if someone else is doing something better than me, I'm not going to just blindly say I'm the best. There's been a couple of times where I've tried someone's cocktail and be like, do you know what? That is better than mine. I'll hand it up to them. They've done it really well. All I do is I'll go back and I'll make mine better until I am the best. And that's kind of my process. So I definitely try them all. But people have been rushing a lot of products out this year, and the stuff that I've done, every recipe's at least 4 months of development, probably 600-700 iterations of recipes, going through about 80 or 90 spirits, choosing all kinds of balances. So the precision and the kind of amount of time I come up with is really important in order to kind of convince people that a bottled cocktail can be as good as the real thing, because there's a huge prejudice still that they're a little bit oversweet, they're too sugary, the quality's low. It's not the same thing. And so the problem is, if people discover other brands first, they try their cocktails, they get an average experience.
Mm-hmm.
That may turn them off the whole category. Then they may not then come to us because they assume that we'll be on the same kind of level. So
How do you
it's
solve
good and
that
it's
though?
bad.
How do you solve making sure that people, I guess, try yours first so that they have that high expectation?
I mean, this is the current challenge, I suppose, to be fair, is that we're really trying to figure out how to do that. And I don't think we can always assume we are going to be the first to people's glasses. I think, thinking that you can be the first brand that people are ever going to try, there's no way you'll ever achieve that unless you've got 10 million to spend on marketing in year one. So it's more about, so how do we deal with people's current mental state? Let's say, fine, they have tried a couple, they've probably got their misgivings. What do we do to kind of communicate with them in a couple of seconds that this is something different? And we're really playing into the story with that, this whole escapism, this whole kind of capture your perfect moment. We're playing very heavily on the fact that we're the most awarded company in the UK. We make sure that comes up front and center so people know that it's not just our opinion, because everyone says their cocktails of our quality. It's what you see on every book that you get. But this is objectively, they've got gold medals, and it's visuals. It's all about creating beautiful stuff, showing that the bottle's lovely. You get your glassware, you get your perfect setting, and it's not just about just popping a drink quickly. It's like we take time to craft a perfect moment, and hopefully people get that association. So they're not thinking that we're the best cocktail. They just like us because of what we stand for, and the fact that we're all about the little guys. We don't use big brands like Bacardi and Smirnoff and Absolute. We don't touch any of the big globals. We're all about craft spirits, smaller distilleries, sustainability. And I guess the thing we want to build over the next year is really making sure across all our channels that message is clear, that this is who we are, this is what we stand for. Come and be part of the tribe, really.
Amazing. And you're obviously going through an investment round at the moment. How has the feedback been with investors in the current climate? And how have you found that experience, obviously from your past experience working in sort of the financial world and dabbling in a few businesses? How has your experience been in this business with so much connection to it? I mean, it's so clear that you are fully connected to the product, to the business, to the mission and purpose. How is that portrayed when you come across and speak to investors and go through that raise?
So, I mean, in terms of investors and where their heads are at, I think people always want somewhere to put their money, in up times and down times. So if anything, people are kind of moving away from the classic investments, and it's actually making people look more for alternative investments, because people aren't just content to sit on cash. They want something, they want their money to be working. So, and especially with things like SEIS, which give them huge tax breaks, it's a perfect time for them to kind of take a punt on some smaller companies. So from that point of view, there hasn't been a huge reluctance. People have been kind of very keen on what we're doing, because like in the alcohol and spirits world, which is quite a big market globally, it's been entrenched for a long time. It's a big market. I saw a release the other day that said that the ready to drink category is the only category that grew this year. Wow. Every other category in spirits shrunk. And, up until now, ready to drink's been kind of like a little spin-off, a bit of a joke. No one takes it seriously. And it is literally the only category to grow. And it's grown by 24%. So it's not
what
just
shifted?
grown.
What changed?
Well, it's the drinking at home. It's the fact that all of a sudden an RTD gives you a fully ready to drink thing that you can just crack open at any location. And they're not always the best quality, but at least it's a put together drink. You don't have to buy the components and thrash it out yourself. It's convenience, it's quick and easy. So it's because of that, and because of the takeaway aspects, all of the bars and pubs and restaurants, they want to still offer alcohol with their food, but they can't. Sometimes they try and do it themselves, but a lot of the time it's easier just to buy some RTDs in and sell those. So just COVID has just turned the entire industry on its head. So Of course, a lot of investors see this, and now of course they're keen to grab a slice of that pie, and they look for RTD companies.
Great position for you then. I
mean, honestly, it sounds bad, but from a business perspective, coronavirus couldn't have come at a better time for us, really. When we just launched, we were literally ready to go with a product that had been developed for a year and a half. So we weren't rushing something out to market, responding to the events. We were already doing this anyway, and just got incredibly lucky with the time. And from both sales and being able to appeal to people and the investment, I suppose. So really, I mean, and with the kind of investment we're talking about, it's a seed round, it's SEIS, it's up to 200K. A huge part of it is taking a punt. I mean, there's only so much due diligence you can do. You really just have to say, do I like the founder? Do I like the team? Do they seem like they know the market? And other than that, it's a complete punt. You can't really look. You don't have trading history. You don't have big accounts to go through. So, and I think because I'm very chatty and passionate about what I do, I suppose it's
It helps.
you know, yeah, and and I don't overthink things. Being from New Zealand, I'm quite a straight talker. I just
Yeah.
let it all out, and
No,
sometimes
it's the
that's not
best
always the
way to
best
be. Like you
approach.
said,
But
it is a punt at the end of the day. I think any investment really is. And if they can see that the market is turning, that percentage increase alone should raise some heads. And I'm sure you've had conversations that you wouldn't have had a year ago because of that, which makes it very interesting. Anyway, you mentioned earlier about sort of the name and how Tom Ford inspires you, and those sorts of characters. Who inspires you sort of in modern day? Who inspires you now that keeps you going, keeps you focused on that end goal, and keeps you wanting to grow the business?
I mean, I suppose I don't actually think there's anyone in a business perspective, because I guess I'm coming up from a small business startup kind of mentality. So these people all seem light years beyond me. I think it's
Sure.
people who are doing good for the world and have got good mindsets on things. People like Simon Sinek, sort of like a blogger stuff. I love listening to his stuff. It's just how he's trying to shape the world and get the right messages out there. Similar people like Bradley Cooper, Ashton Kutcher, people who are up there that are doing good and have great messages to
Yeah.
be sending out. I think those are the kind of people that inspire me, to kind of to want to be like that, to want to not only get involved and be successful. I mean, I'm doing this to leave my day job behind so I can provide a future for myself and a future family. Obviously, that's the initial driver. But beyond that, I'd love to be in a position where I actually had the power to do something good and influence other people's choices and decisions, and help, even if it's a tiny shift in the direction of where the human race goes from here. I'd like to think I had some positive impact on that. So I think we've gone pretty off center from where we should be. So it needs people, and I'm not going to say I'm going to be the most influential person on the planet, but if I can have a tiny
Yeah.
nudge to help things along the right direction, that's what I want to be. So
And all those tiny
yeah,
nudges make a big difference anyway. So
yeah,
and
and that's exactly it. If it's right from where you drink, from where you shop, the brands you buy, the
yeah,
people you follow, it's just sinking that message in time and time again, just to kind of help people see that this is a good way to live. And you don't have to sacrifice anything. I think Tom Savano is very much about that. It's very much about, it's down to earth. It's not pretentious. It's enjoying beautiful, simple stuff. Like just, it could be finding a lovely little cottage down in Cornwall. It's raining outside. You've got some fairy lights off, the surfboards all by the side, and you're just sitting with some friends huddled under a blanket having a cocktail. I mean, that's a beautiful moment. But at the same time, while it can be very down to earth or very upmarket, there's no sacrifice on quality. It's still saying, I still like nice stuff. I still want a
yeah.
great cocktail. I want the best cocktail, and then everything else can just be natural and organic, but I'm not going to compromise my drink.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the storytelling aspect to that is what makes it. What's next for you then? What's next in terms of obviously finishing this round? What's your plan for 2021? Where do you want to see Tom Savano's this time? 1st of December 2021.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously it's the first time we're going to have some serious budget to actually do something with, which is good. We've done a lot of experimenting to figure out a baseline of what works, where we go. I think the big focus for the next year is all on the direct consumer model. So we did want to look at other markets like restaurants, bars, hotels, airlines, and things like that. Which we're still interested. We're still having conversations around these things, and if they happen, they happen. But the big focus, I think, is really trying to solidify this direct consumer experience. So we want to really premiumize everything about it. The boxes you receive them have to be, beautiful unboxing experiences full of, great discovery stuff, like telling you how to taste certain notes in a tequila to kind of get the most out of it. Nice glassware, showing you how to present your cocktail, little branded ice cube trays, little booklets,
Making it
videos
an
to kind of,
experience.
yeah, and we've been talking to some of the spirits distillers. We work with these small guys, and they've got like virtual distillery tours that we can kind of send to our customers and things like that. So it's just bringing the whole world of craft spirits and that kind of thing of exploration. And in a year's time, I would just like to be just really up to speed with all of that. Obviously we want to be on Amazon, get some stuff out there, just nationwide, and just to kind of have significantly pulled ahead of the pack, I suppose, in terms of all the other competitors, to start really developing that lead so that we can start concentrating on being, a big brand, to start thinking about, do we go international? What countries next?
Yeah.
I think, that's where I'd like to be in 12 months' time.
What do you have to see for you to know that answer?
To know if we've achieved it, or
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I suppose, I mean, it's just sales, repeat purchase, seeing how often people are re-engaging, how
Mm.
our following's growing, how much people are commenting and sharing their own news. Once people start doing a lot of user-generated content, I think that's a good sign that people are really starting to buy into who
And
you are and
people are
what you're
talking
doing.
about it. There's a buzz around it.
Yeah, because you can keep pushing it and you can keep
Yeah.
putting money behind it, and you always get a bit of a result and a bit of a spike every time you push. But it's when you kind of take that away and the plates are still spinning. That's
Yeah.
kind of where you want to
It's
get
when the
to, and where
paid, it's like when the paid marketing turns into that organic side of things.
yeah,
And then you can balance the two really nicely and get amazing growth. For you,
yeah.
I'm curious to know, obviously the product has been in people's hands already. People have tried it, people are drinking it, people are loving it. How was it for you, that first experience when someone that you had no connection to, a complete stranger, purchased it, and you were sending that to effectively, I guess, your first cold customer?
Yeah. I mean, we did a lot of build up around the launch. So in terms of with social, pressing for about 6 or 7 weeks out, really saying this is the first time they're ever going to be available. We were building up a newsletter subscription page from a landing site and all that. So I built up this huge, buzz. I wanted it to be kind of out of the gates really hard.
You
And I
must
just
have been
remember the
high
second week
energy
kind of,
as well at that point.
oh yeah, because I was literally up until about a day before, I wasn't sure I was going to be ready in time, because the labels were only ready kind of like 2 weeks before launch date, because the big delay knows. And I literally had all my friends come around one night and
Love
just do
it.
a labeling party. We just spent all night just labeling bottles, ship them out in the morning. And so it's really last minute stuff. But it was when the first sale came through, within about 7 minutes of flicking the website on,
Wow.
and it was like about 120 quid. It was like about 9 or 10 bottles, and I was just like, wow, that's far beyond anything I expected. It's like, this is the
Yeah.
way it goes. We're made, and then that was like an anomaly. That was just one person who'd clearly been waiting a long time to get these drinks and didn't want to miss out. And then it just really slowed to a trickle after that, and it made me realize that build the buzz all you want. It's difficult to predict behavior and who's going to
Yeah.
buy what. But
But
I
it's about
think
being consistent, isn't it? It's about being consistently showing up, consistently helping your brand, and sharing that message.
yeah, and I think one thing that is kind of really defined this year, and I hope that this is something which is going to be a reason why we sort of emerge as one of the better brands out there, is that I take huge personal interest in every customer, in terms of like every time an order comes in, if someone has got a customer inquiry, I'm responding in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
People are kind of like really surprised at the rapid rate of response, because normally you email a company, you wait a couple of days for response. And I'm just sitting here, I'm working all the time, and I literally see something come in and I just reply straight away. And as the CEO, just literally responding to the stuff myself. If something's wrong, I'll send out a replacement immediately. I don't know if it's, I mean, at some stage, it's probably the burden of doing that is probably going to become a bit of an issue. As the customers go, and I have
But
to get a proper
this is
customer
something
support
that
team.
founders always go through, especially in brands like yours, where those early days they have that real connection with customers, and it's such a normal dilemma for them to think, okay, where do I position myself with the customer moving forward? Because with our growth expectation or our desires, in the reality, you can't be doing that. You can't be answering in minutes and really quickly. But that's
Yeah.
when we then have that discussion about building that team culture, the communication with customers, to make sure that your support staff have that exact same feeling with their customers than you do now, which is, I think, going to be a really exciting path for you, because like that side of any business growth is really a learning factor from the founder into moving into that leadership role to make sure that the business can actually do what it needs to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I've already kind of earmarked this as something I think is it's not going to be a challenge for me, per se, but I think it's definitely something I need to work on. Up until now, I do everything myself. I like to have like James Cameron as the director. He's the kind of guy who'll push the cameraman aside and he'll take the shot because he
Yeah.
thinks he can do it better, and it works for him. But at some point, you can't do that, and you've got to. It's about trying to find, like you said, that's the leadership thing. It's about trying to inspire your team to get the best out of people without micromanaging, without telling people what they're doing wrong and saying
Yeah.
you're not doing this good enough. It's about it's a very odd thing to do, and to be able to step back and help nurture people so they can deliver you their best. And that's something I think I definitely want to be, that kind of leader and CEO. It's just, it's very alien, and it's very difficult to kind of let go of those first control strings on your baby, I suppose.
100%.
And with customers, I've got this, I wouldn't say I'm a people pleaser, that in some ways I am, and that I don't want any customer to have a bad experience with Tom Savano. So no matter what, I'm there to kind of make sure, I've literally, people had mix-ups, and it's not always my fault. In fact, usually it's not my fault. Like, couriers are the bane of my life. They just don't turn up. They say they've tried to deliver 3 times, and then the customer sends me video footage showing no one's turned up.
Fence.
Yeah, if they even do that, and then customers were saying, "Oh, we had these for my birthday. I was really disappointed because the birthday's this evening, and they're not going to arrive in time." And so I literally just hopped in my car and drove half an hour to hand drop some just to their door, just to make sure they had the cocktails for their birthday, because I'd hate them to have a negative experience of Tom Savano on a special day. And that's more, to me, that's more important. And again, at some point, the thing I've got to learn is that not all customers are good customers. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to see that a little bit. And sometimes
you will never be able to please everyone.
No, and some people are just looking to complain. Some people will complain about everything. Sometimes they just want a free cocktail. Sometimes they're just really horrible, negative people who just want something to moan about and complain and just to trash you. And so it's I think at some point, because it's very hard not to take that stuff personally when you're a new founder starting out, you're just like, why does this person hate my brand so much? What have I done wrong? And it makes you feel awful and terrible. And at some point, you've got to kind of get beyond that. So you realize that, no, some customers just will treat you like crap, and you can't let people like that walk over you. So you've got to draw a line somewhere. And I think that's a really important thing to realize at some point.
Yeah. It's it also gives you that control back, doesn't it? Because it's so easy, I think, for your time and energy to be absorbed by those people that, like you said, are just looking out to complain. That's what they do. It's almost like they brought the product with the intention of complaining about it, which is just inconceivable to me, but I know it happens because I've spoken to many founders that have gone through that as well. So it is about sort of mixing that emotional tie-in to the systems in place and the procedure that again comes with that leadership and building out that team, which is I think is just going to be a really interesting phase for you to go through, and I'm really keen to hear how you do go through that in the future. But James, listen, I guess one of my final questions for you is, how can people get their hands on some Tom Savano cocktails and experience the amazing stories that you've just told me?
Well, I mean, obviously we deliver UK wide. We've got next day delivery as well. So if you want, I mean, it does cost a little bit extra if you want to do that, but yeah, just pop onto tomsavano.com, order a selection for yourself. The best thing to do is order them for your friends, put a smile on their faces, and they'll return the favor. Just, you can put a little note in to say, thinking of you, let's meet up after lockdown. They're all in stock at the moment. I'm doing everything I can to make sure they don't go out of stock. And we've got some really exciting Christmas boxes coming up in the next couple of weeks, about 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to have some beautifully themed boxes with some garnishes, glassware, all sorts of stuff, bar snacks, just to kind of do a lovely little Christmas in session.
Love it. James, congratulations on the success of Tom Savano at the moment. And I do really wish you will get to that top spot. I think you will, and you're definitely a founder to watch. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being here.
No, thank you too. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thanks everyone else for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.